Welcome to West Country Wanderings. I'm now in Swindon in Wiltshire. I've just caught the train, literally a 5-minute walk from the train, walking along what is known as the Canal Walk through the Brunel shopping centre. We're going to trace all its routes down to what remains of the canal down the other end. We have this delightful bridge here, literally just on the edge of the town centre. Much building land here, it's surrounded by office blocks for the likes of insurance companies, etc. But we have this remnant of the Wilts Berks here, right in the centre of Swindon. So we're going to follow the walk here, carrying along Canal Walk to see a restored section, and then we're going to trace and have a look at what the route of the new route of the Wilts Berks is going to look like, and I'll explain more about that when we get there. So see you in a bit. So yeah, just have to imagine narrowboats back in the late 18th and 19th century going in here into the centre of Swindon. So you're probably curious like me, so we're just going to have a look and see what it looks like from the top of the old canal bridge here in Swindon. So where that footpath is there, underneath the bridge here, which I'm currently standing on, I think it's called Milton Street, that is a route down to a restored section of the Wilts Berks, so we're going to carry on a walk down there. Now I can hear water underneath this footpath rushing through, so it looks like the water that once trickled through or along the canal has now been subsumed underneath the present day footpath here. So this is the second of our bridges after leaving the railway station. This is Cambria Bridge, this isn't an original canal bridge, of course, but our route contains down here. It's also known as a southern flyer for cyclists, joining up with National Cycle Route number 45. Now, it has got a GWR logo as part of the graffiti mural here. It'd be a shame that it doesn't have anything to do with canals though. Now all of this housing here with the garages that back onto what would have been the canal, of course, have been built long after the canal was closed here in Swindon. Now what is explaining that there are plans to restore a lot of the canal, but there are no plans to restore it on the original route from where we're heading to back into the town centre again because of the building that's taken place. And I'll put up some maps so you can see the reason why that is. Tucked behind a garage, it's inappropriately, well today at least, named Sunnyside Avenue, is this sign, Wilts Berks Canal. So just after 15 minutes from leaving Swindon railway station in the centre of Swindon, we come to a section of the Wilts Berks Canal. Yes, with water in it too. Just behind me though, section over there, which obviously that's the line of the canal, and obviously that's clearly been infilled. Now if you go onto the Wilts Berks Canals Trust website, which is excellent by the way, they have an interactive map, and it does highlight that this section is navigable. And there are indeed some boats moored up there here on the canal. It's quite curious that this section of the canal that has been restored, I don't know the date it was restored, possibly in the 80s, early 90s, is actually quite wide at this section because the Wilts Berks, very much like the T&S, is a narrow canal. It's only suitable for like just over 7 foot wide narrow boats. I've noticed a couple of these railings here which possibly date from the canal days, but this one is actually grown right through into the tree. Well, not the fence has grown into the tree is actually grown round the old canal fence. Wow, look at that. A very pleasant section of canal here too. Also some private gardens which back onto the canal and make use of the canal frontage here. Well, that's a magnificent structure, isn't it? That's the railway bridge that once carried the Midland and South Western Junction Railway. In fact, I was on it recently over at Swindon and Cricklade Heritage Line at Blunsdon, not far from here. So that was a line that once linked Cheltenham to Andover and Swindon, closing in the 60s or 65, I think. I'll put the date in below, can't remember exactly. And there is now a footpath along that, so it's a lost railway walk, if you like. But we'll be walking along part of that. I decided to walk along part of that. It's part of my route back to Swindon railway station to complete our circuit today. But there's much else to show you here, still here on the Wilts Berks here in Swindon. Now we're actually on the former railway, variously titled Swindon Green Route or the River Ray Parkway. In this direction, currently walking to West Swindon, that area, and the direction behind me is where we're going to be heading, but I'll be coming off and following the canal and rejoining with the old railway line later, heads down towards Andover, but we're not walking to Andover today. Well, I'm glad I came up this way. I've got a magnificently restored railway bridge here, and I know I say it when I'm on these old railway tracks, and I know it's not a railway one today, but you've got the A34, which is constantly clogged with heavy traffic and lorries making for the south coast. I just think this line here from this part of the West Country in Wiltshire heading down to the south coast would have taken off a lot of that pressure. I know, I realise that's not the original bridge over this link road that passes underneath the... There's now a very useful footpath for the people who live in Swindon. It's a nice touch. So we're heading back now to our canal bridge over the Wilts Berks Canal and see what that looks like from above, looking down on the canal, before we rejoin it and continue to follow this restored section of the Wilts Berks here in Swindon. I'm also going to be having a quick look at the old town part of Swindon as part of our route back too. And so this is our canal from above. Looking down on it, that's back in the direction of Swindon town centre. Section in Swindon continues along there, so we're going to continue along the towpath down there. On the opposite bank there from the towpath it says canal closed. Not sure why that is. It's possibly because of the bridge we've got coming up, so we're going to have a closer look at that. So those boats we saw outside those properties are a bit of marooned, unfortunately, because this is a non-navigable section at the moment of the Wilts Berks. I don't know the name of this canal bridge over the Wilts Berks here, but if I can find that out, I'll put it in. But it's the first authentic canal-looking bridge that we've seen, apart from that red brick one, which obviously was rebuilt later on back in Swindon town centre. Now, it looks like the Wilts Berks Canal Trust have been using that as a compound there. The little porta cabins with equipment maybe in for dredging. They've got a little slipway there for launching any boats they need to service the needs of the canal. But yeah, it's a terrific bridge here. Some good brickwork keystones on the bridge there too. Let's have a closer look at that. Now there is a little plaque to my right saying that this was restored and supported by the Heritage Lottery Fund. I think probably about 20 years ago now. But good that it has. Yes, in fact it confirms it up there. Just seeing that out. It says 2000 in the brickwork there. There's an even little boat there, blue, tri-coloured blue boat in the field there. Probably waiting to get relaunched back on the canal again. I don't know if that's owned by the trust or not, but yeah, lovely spot here, just on the edge of Swindon. So we have a very useful map here on the wall, courtesy of the Wilts Berks Canal, so thank you for that. It's really, really excellent map. So you see we've come here along the canal, line of the canal, which this infield where we had those garages, that's coming down from the town centre and railway station, Kings Hill. Then we had Rushley Platt Nature Reserve when we had all those greenery and the birds there and the gardens and all that. Then we had that railway skew bridge here, the old railway, soccer route number 45. It continues on down here. So this bridge, I just indicated, I said I didn't know the name of it, the one that was restored in 2000 is actually called Bevans or Bevans, I'm not sure which. And we're going to continue down here towards Waitrose, where there, I believe, is a new wharf. And I think there's a pub there, H&W, I'm not sure. Is that Hall and Woodhouse? I don't know. I'm not familiar with that symbol. Some people will know what that means. I don't. We'll have a look at that. Maybe I can get a coffee there, I'm not sure. So we'll have a look at that. And then you can see that the proposed canal route continues out here to link up with the original route coming up from Semington Locks, where it joins the Avon. That's the one I'm looking for, K&A Canal. And then we're going to have a look along here, this section here, which is a new section, which will take us to Coat Water, which was a reservoir built for the water for the canal. And it says here this area is called Wiltshire, which is really interesting because this area does not appear on the OS map. It is marked as being built up, but there isn't. It's completely unnamed on the OS map. I'm not sure if this Wiltshire, if anybody's watching this, is this a new part of Swindon? Has it been given this name recently? I'd love to know about that because lots of maps it doesn't seem to appear. But anyway, we're going to continue along there. Just before I go, I've just noticed that there is a branch meeting report, May 2023, which must have been yesterday on the bank holiday. There's 3 pages of it. I'm not going to read all of it, but it does say about the closure here. It's called the West Lees blockade. So we're currently West Lees, and as I say, this is where the abandoned village was, and it does say that it's something to do with a covenant complaint about using the canal. It's a long-standing closure, and they're trying to get that resolved, so that's interesting. I'll put a link out to that because the good news is that they've also received match funding campaign through Aviva Insurance. I went past their offices earlier on after leaving the railway station, and I'll put a link in, so if you want to read all of that about the Wilts Berks Canal Trust and what's been happening in terms of funding and restoration, which is really interesting and important, of course, I'll put it in the description of today's video. So we have a terrific restored section of the Wilts Berks Canal here.
This is a place either known as Westleys or Witchelstowe. I think the developers, is it Wimpy Homes, to do with, in conjunction with Swindon Town Council, have redeveloped part of this site. I would have preferred the rundown inner city bit to have been redeveloped, because there's plenty of space there where there's just empty buildings sat doing nothing, and they've built on green space here, which isn't great. But as part of the process of restoration, they have restored this terrific section of the canal, and the Wilts Berks Trust are doing a fantastic job of maintaining the biodiversity of this site in planting trees and maintaining the hedges and banks by doing lots of green things to encouraging the wildlife, which is really, really good to see. You have a school or academy just opposite here, and it's not open today because the teachers are on strike, so it normally would be a school day, but it's closed. You also have a Waitrose on the opposite bank of the canal there. Terrific bridge here, which I think is lit up at night time. I think it's got like orange lights on it. And there's also, yes, H&W, it stands for Hall and Woodhouse. It's a Dorset brewer, goes back to the 18th century. I managed to get myself a coffee overlooking the Wilts Berks there. Very, very pleasant spot indeed. And I didn't want to film in because you had diners inside the pub, but as you go inside, if you want to go in there and check it out for yourself, you can see that they've actually got a section of a narrowboat beautifully painted, and their dining area there too. So as well as this restored section here, the next section, of course, is the M4 motorway. There is a blockage. Yes, we've come across this before. Droitwich Canal had that problem up until 2011 when they managed to get the canal underneath there. And of course, the Stroudwater's got that problem too. And hopefully things will be happening with that before too long. Once they've got through the other side of the M4, it'll be able to link up to the section that's already been restored at Royal Wootton Bassett. So there'll be a complete green corridor, water green corridor, between this town here of Swindon, this large town of Swindon, and the town of Royal Wootton Bassett, all via the Wilts Berks Canal. And we've already seen part of that section of Royal Wootton Bassett in Wilts Berks Canal video number 2. What we're going to do now is go and continue along to another section of the canal, which will take us along to the area known as Coat Water. And as I say, that water area there was used to pump water into the Wilts Berks to keep water in it. There are also plans to restore another small section in water along the original line of the Wilts Berks in Swindon town centre too, to give it a water feature. But I hasten to add, there are no plans to restore the original section of the Wilts Berks right through the section we've walked down today to link up to the other side. So we'll be going on this rerouted route around the southern part of the town of Swindon to join the original line of the Wilts Berks at Shrivenham, where there's a large Ministry of Defence. I think it's the biggest military college in Europe, I believe, skirting around that and making its way across into Oxfordshire, Wantage Arm, which we've yet to cover, and back out to Royal Wootton Bassett, to Abingdon upon Thames, which we saw in the last video on this series here. So this is currently the end of the line, or the end of the canal at the moment of this restored section of the Wilts Berks. It should hopefully continue through this embankment. We're going to make our way over the embankment, crossing a road and then heading back around. So I'll see you in a bit. But we're not far from the M4 motorway here, and so once it gets to the other side of that, beyond that there's a farm called Wharf Farm. And then it's not too far till we get to the eastern edge of Royal Wootton Bassett, so it can link up, as I say, with the currently existing restored sections there. And that's looking back towards that Hall and Woodhouse pub come eatery. That's the tall building there. I think it's designed to replicate a millside canal building. I don't think it does that, but yeah, it's nice anyway. It's a beautiful place to chill out and have a drink by the side of the canal. But sadly, yes, all this here is marked off for, yes, you guessed it, more housing. Wouldn't that be nice to see that as an orchard, or actually as a field for growing some food that we desperately need, rather than importing poor quality fruit, but alas, they prefer bricks and mortar to green space. And that, once you've climbed up that embankment where I said we've got the end of the canal, that's what it looks like on the other side. So that very clearly there is the line of the Wilts Berks Canal. You can see that in between the trees there. So it wouldn't take too much effort to get that restored too. Now I know that Swindon is known for its funky roundabouts, magic roundabout and all that, but yes, I have no idea. I don't know what to put that up as a caption for that. I'll leave it to you to decide. If you think you know what this roundabout should be called, drop a comment below. Now I do excuse the traffic noise at this point, it's quite horrendous because we're close to the M4 motorway. So running parallel to the M4 motorway, you have this section of, well, kind of restored it. They've obviously done something with it. Perhaps somebody, if you're watching this from the Wilts Berks Canal Trust, you can explain what's going on here, because I can't quite work it out. I know this is going to be the new route, but it kind of looks like it's been restored, and now it looks like it's been abandoned again. You can make out some edging there where there'd be the edging of the canal towpath, but since then the water management's flooded it, and trees have been allowed to grow back into it again. So I don't know what's going on here, but if you do know, please drop a comment below. Thanks. So I've now come to the other side of that bridge where it's flooded. It's also flooded here too, so we've also got lamps. They put lamps up along the towpath, but the towpath is now impassable. It's completely fenced off, and it looks like this section has been abandoned once again, despite lots of money going in to build the locks here. I think this location is called Foxham. I'm trying to get to the other location of that here to see if we can get a bit closer to it. Now, this is a very interesting viewpoint. So I've got the M4 motorway behind me, so again I do apologise for the road traffic noise. That there is a lamp, that's not a street, that's the canal. That's our Wilts Berks Canal. Restored section, not sure when it was restored, but looks like they're now digging it out again. Probably to clear the sluices, which has caused that flooding along the towpath. But yeah, so this is Foxham, parallel to the M4. To say, if I can rejoin the towpath there to get you a better shot, I will try to do so. I can't get through this way because we've got a locked gate even, and no access from that side. The other thing I should have pointed out is it looks like this is actually an aqueduct, a very small aqueduct, a very new aqueduct, but yes, you've got water which has percolated its way underneath the M4 and percolates its way underneath the Wilts Berks Canal. So now we're going to turn left into it, and I don't know how to pronounce that word. Is it Whitechall, Wickle, Witchell? I don't know. Please let me know. No idea. But anyway, we go left, and then we've got a bridge which goes over the Wilts Berks, a new bridge over this section here. So this is another section of the new section of the Wilts Berks. As I say, it's skirting the south side of Swindon town, paralleling the M4 to make its way then north to Shrivenham, and thus back into Oxfordshire, heading over to Abingdon. As I say, it looks like it was originally property developer money that funded this, but since been neglected, and now it looks like work is happening on to restore it once more. So we're now at East Whitchall, Wickle, take your pick. As I say, it looks like they had some money from the developer to do this, but obviously no money for any ongoing maintenance, sadly. Yeah, so it's always not what it seems. You think, oh, it's a restored section of the canal, but clearly it's a long, long way to go, because you have these various bunds because the water supply has yet to be sorted out, with various bits that are dry and other sections that are completely flooded. Interesting to see that navigation sign there on the opposite side of this towpath, maximum draft single file, but I think we're a long way off seeing any boats coming back along here at the moment. And there's another one of those bunds where you can walk right across the canal. Hopefully temporary. I don't know what the timescales are to get these replaced in this section navigable. So that completes our tour of the Wilts Berks in Swindon, looking at the various sections that have been restored, ones that have been restored recently, and the exciting plans to join a green waterway route up to Royal Wootton Bassett to the existing sections. That's really exciting. Less so is this Foxham bit because, as I say, they've had developer money, but it looks like it's been abandoned. They are working on it now. You can probably hear some sawing. That's by that little aqueduct I showed you. It runs parallel to the M4. So hopefully that will reopen as a navigable section too. And it's great to hear that they've had some match funding from Aviva. I think it was Aviva, the insurance company, one of them anyway. I'll drop it in below. And I'll put a link in for the latest minutes of their meeting that they've had. So I'll also drop in the connection to, or link to, the Wilts Berks Canal Trust. Brilliant website. There is one section the other thing to mention, it's a bit disappointing to see that they haven't built a footpath, a green footpath to connect this, I think it's called Foxham or East Wiltshire, take your pick, I don't know. Whitchell, I don't know. I know you'll correct me, so just drop it in the comments. I have no idea how you pronounce it. There's no footpath. You have to walk along roads which don't have footpaths. Quite dangerous, really. There's no way of connecting the two up. There are blocked footpaths at the moment because of all that extra housing they're building around the Waitrose side there. So yeah, it's a bit of continuity. They do need to have a proper footpath in place to link that section of the Wilts Berks up with this bit here at Foxham, East Wiltshire, Wickle. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to head back on a footpath. There's a beautiful lake here, got some swans nesting in there next to this newish housing development. I make my way following the old railway line, which we saw earlier in the video, once linked Cheltenham down to Andover and Southampton. I'm going to follow that into Old Town part of Swindon, which I've never been to before. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some photographs on that section, and I'll leave you with those photographs here today alongside the Wilts Berks, which is just up there. Also leave you with some shots of that too. I hope you enjoyed this Canal Series 1 today at the Wilts Berks. We will be looking at the Wilts Berks again. That's the other thing I forgot to mention. I knew there was something else. There is another section we haven't looked at Swindon, and that's at Mulsham Country Park. And I was close to there the other day and I forgot to go and look at it. So I will need to go and have a trip there because there is an aqueduct in the country park there. And we'll go and have a look at that at some future video here on the Canal Series on West Country Wanderings. But we will also be looking at the Wilts Berks again at other sections along, particularly the locks at Chippenham. So that'll be coming up soon. So if you like interesting canals, then please get a like. And I've also got a canal you probably have not heard of. I'm not going to mention what it is. That'll be landing in the probably next couple of months or two. I've only recently found out about it. So if you like canals, particularly disused canals, and looking at their history and what remains of them today, then please hit the subscribe. We'll be looking at it over the next couple of months. I think you'll be really interested in that because there is one video on YouTube which is about 15 years old on it, and there's literally nothing else. So I'm really excited about that and hope to bring that with you in the not too distant future. So love to hear from you. Please comment on, particularly on my pronunciation. This part I don't know Swindon at all, so please comment on there to correct me on my pronunciation or any other bits of information that you have about the restoration, because it's trying to piece it all together. There are some interpretive boards which give you some information, but some of it doesn't make sense to me. So I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, take care of yourselves, look after yourselves, and I hope to see you again. All the best for now. Cheers now. Bye-bye.